Hello and welcome to the Dundee Carer Centre Virtual Hub. This week our theme is school transition, which is fast approaching for us here in Dundee. We've got 4 guests with us today. We've got 2 members of our Young Carers voice group, Harry and Sophie, and another 2 guests, Fiona Low, who is the Education Support Officer and also the link to the Young Carers. And we've got Janette Kerr, who's the Educational Support Officer for young people with additional needs. So first off, I'm going to start by raising a couple of questions that we've had submitted to us from carers and their families, and these questions were going to be directed to both Janette Kerr and Fiona Low. So the first question that we've got is, do all children have to go back to school in August, or will there be possibilities for alternative arrangements? Could that be homeschooling or blended learning, for example?
Can I say that we're hoping that everyone will return to school when schools go back next week. But we absolutely understand the anxiety around that parents may have, that young people may have, because it's quite some time since they've been in school. It's a big shift again. But we would hope that that anxiety will be lifted once young people do go back to school. There's lots of questions that many people are asking. And I would say if you have real anxiety about going back, then please get in touch with the head teachers or your guidance teacher in school and speak to them about how you're feeling. But also be aware of the fact that there's a great question and answer section on Dundee City Council's website just now, just exactly around those whole aspects of returning to school, and there's about 10 or 15 points that the council already are sort of preempting queries and concerns that parents have, and there's really a lot of detail there. But yes, we would expect everyone to be back in school at some point over the next, once schools go back, and head teachers will be contacting parents within the next week or so with details about how that transition back into school, what it will look like for each individual year group or class. But if there are real anxieties, that please don't hesitate to get in touch with either the head teacher of the school or in a secondary situation, your PT guidance.
Great. So will that information that's going to be corresponded with families, will that probably be through a letter?
It might be a letter, it might be email, it was likely to be on the school website. A lot of schools particularly through sort of lockdown, have turned to Twitter. So if families are able to access Twitter and such, like school app, a lot of schools in the city now are using school app as well. So all that information will be there.
Fab. Great. Thanks for that, Fiona. Another question that we have had from families, will the arrangements be the same for all schools? And are there any particular arrangements for children with additional needs? And how are the schools going to communicate these back to parents?
So yes, every school will have their own set of guidance, I would imagine, because every school is different. They'll be communicating that to the parents and students. I also emailed some information about things to help children return to school, some websites and some social stories and things like that. As in additional support needs, I know I've been in touch with a lot of schools over the past 5 months, sharing resources and things like that. So I know a lot of schools have been in touch with parents with transition packs and things like that. I know that some schools have put on videos and photographs onto their school website, which is really useful for parents to go and have a look at. Some schools have made little videos that you can access through their school website, so that might alleviate some anxiety for young people if they can actually see the school. The resources that I've sent in today are really useful for children with additional support needs to get ready for going back to school. So using things like social stories can help a child with the sort of support of visuals in order for them to understand what it'll be like going back to school. It also gives parents some ideas about things like becoming more used to being doing your things yourself and to get dressed independently. Do note that over the next week or so.
Children with specific additional support needs as well. I mean, obviously schools are very aware of these needs anyway. And it's just keeping that link going between home and school, and for parents not to be afraid as of next week to contact school with concerns.
Yeah, and I think this week in particular, people are a bit anxious because it's a way to happen, and we had to wait, obviously, till Nicola Sturgeon on Thursday had made that, and that's why there was a lot of parents were becoming anxious and saying we've not got any information. But I suppose we had to wait on that decision being made, and I think it's helping parents understand that there was nothing we could do till that decision was made.
Okay, so another question we've got is, what social distancing measures will be put in place within schools for young people when they return?
Well, obviously, schools have got to take into consideration what Scottish Government are advising as far as social distancing is concerned within schools, and what other health and safety aspects will be in and around school. There have been 8 schools within the city that have been open throughout because they've been hubs for key workers and vulnerable children. These schools close, and then there will be deep cleaning going on. So all schools will have been cleaned and ready for staff going in on Monday morning. Yes, there will be plenty of hand sanitisers throughout the school. Some schools, I don't know if all schools, but a fair number of them now have got wall-mounted hand sanitisers as well that automatically dispense. All classrooms will have hand sanitisers, and secondary school pupils in particular to take some responsibility themselves for keeping themselves sort of safe, as it were. And so if to make sure you wipe down the workspace that you've been working at, but also a great emphasis on hand washing, particularly in the primary sector. And that's going on, and just to be encouraging that as well.
I don't think it'll look completely into the children because we see them all in supermarkets, in the town, restaurants now. There's lots of these characters that they're not going to be unusual now. That's part of our normal now. So we've got another question for you guys. Are there contingency plans in place in case of a regional lockdown in Dundee?
Before schools finished at the end of term, schools were planning for a return to school, but it was to be what we were calling blended learning. So those plans still exist. No teacher or no head teacher's taken those plans and ripped them up, put them in the bin. They're still there. So should anything happen, then obviously that could very quickly be put into place. But I think it's worth recognising that when it was announced in March that schools were closing on the 20th of March, Dundee City Council acted really, really quickly to put provision in place for the young people. So much so that the Scottish Government actually highlighted at one point over the summer that the work that had been put in place. And there are a few schools in Dundee that have been highlighted as particularly good practice. Dundee's in a good place. If the worst case scenario, then we acted very, very quickly and kept everybody safe last time round. And yes, absolutely. I mean, I think we could be secure and sort of thinking that if heaven forbid, we end up having to go into a serious situation again, then there are plans in place.
Great. It's great to know that we've got that families and their carers will have confidence in their education staff, and to know that there is plans and protocols in place should something like this happen again.
Yeah.
Okay, so more talking about education and things. Obviously, we've got exam results coming up. What should a young person or a parent do if they're unhappy with their SQA results?
Well, I mean, let's be positive here and let's say that we hope everybody has done as well as they want to have done. If there is disappointment there, then the first thing to do is to contact school. And a member of SMT in your secondary school are likely to be in school this week. So the first thing to do then is to contact them, and just with any concerns that you've got, and then school will explain what the next steps would be. Okay,
thank you. What are the current plans for SQA exams in 2020-21, and how will these plans be communicated to the young people and their families?
As far as we're aware, and from what the Scottish Government are saying, that the exam diet in 2021 will go ahead, and we don't know anything different from that. But should something happen, then obviously we will inform parents and young people through school as quickly as we can. But as it stands just now, and with young people returning to school, those that are going into S4, 5 or 6 should be returning with a frame of mind that at the end of this academic session, they will be sitting some form of national exams.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Fiona and Janette. I think that is all that we've got that were identified questions for yourselves. The rest of them we have been identified for the young people that we've got as guests on the hub this week. So I'll just introduce those guys. We've got Harry and Sophie, and they are both young carers themselves and are part of the Young Carers Voice group. And they're both actually Young Carers ambassadors for their school. So Harry and Sophie, in discussion about obviously going back to school, how do you guys feel about that?
Going back to school, it's different. We've not been there for a few months, and to be quite honest, I'm excited to go back to see everyone again, to get back into a usual routine. Not so much getting up early, but just sacrifices you have to make, eh? But
yeah,
I mean, getting to see everyone again, getting an education, not doing everything from home, actually like be able to get support with work, like there and then, instead of having to email teachers, doing it online. Maybe going back to school this year, or this term, might be good. But in my opinion, I'm excited to go back, but there also is that little bit of nervous, like, what's it going to be like? And obviously, it's not going to be school. It's going to be quite different.
Well, it's not going to be the school as you left it. It's going to be completely different. And obviously that'll present anxieties for all children and young people that are going to be going back to school. But specifically as a carer, how do you think that this might make you feel going back to school in 2 weeks' time?
Going back to school as a carer, I'm going to have like the nerves of obviously leaving home and leaving cared for person, and you're not really with them. You're not going to be with them 24/7, or at least for most of the day. But when you're at school, you're at school for nearly 8 hours a day. The only way you can contact is via phone, or if you don't have a phone, then you kind of just got to hope that everything will be okay. But I guess there's going to be that sense of what's going to happen now. Like, is it going to still be the same? Are they going to be okay at home? But yeah, it's going to be quite, for the first week, I think it'll be very bumpy, and I'll probably think about it a lot. But when you get back, I think hopefully I'll be all right.
Great. Sophie, how are you feeling about going back to school?
So, like Harry said, I'm actually quite excited. I've not seen everyone in about 5 months, and looking back at before lockdown, before coronavirus, it's like a whole nother life to me. So I'm really nervous about how things are going to go, but I'm really, really looking forward to seeing my teachers again, seeing my friends again, and getting a bit of normality back into my life.
Great. And as I've said, you both are already young care ambassadors within your schools. So what kind of importance does your role have in playing in this transition period for, these new first years that are going to be coming up? This is their first time in a high school. If they are a carer, what can they expect? What support can they expect from yourselves and the school in general if they are a carer?
When obviously new young carers come up from primary school, they'll obviously be greeted by one of the management team, and they also will have they also will be in contact with the likes of you, or they will have the young carer coordinator, which is Karen. Like, they will be introduced to these people hopefully within the first few weeks of being back, and if not, then I guess that would be like something for us to do and something for us to look out for, and like maybe try and identify as many people as we can.
Have you got anything you want to add to that, Sophie?
Yeah, like Harry said, obviously there will be Karen and Stephen and everyone else. But one thing that's good about being an ambassador is a lot of people want to talk to their peers as well, rather than an adult. They find it easier. So we're always here as well for people who feel that way as well.
Yeah. So I think your guys' role is really significant, because you're going to play a vital part in, supporting your peers in school if they feel like they can't access their guidance team or their registration teacher or not. And every school in Dundee now has a young carer ambassador and a young carers coordinator, and it just shows the importance of that link and the support that's in the school for carers, especially with the difficulties and the barriers that might be brought to the surface when going back to school. So earlier on, I was speaking to Janette and Fiona about SQA results, and obviously, as you know, these are going to be coming out very, very soon. So I was speaking to them, and we were discussing, what are young people and their families going to do if they are a wee bit disappointed by the results this year. Have you got anything you guys want to add to that about your thoughts and feelings on SQA and exams?
I'm not so nervous about the ones that are happening. The ones that have just happened, I'm more nervous for the ones next year, because I don't want them to be delayed in any way. I know Janette said that they could be delayed by a few weeks, but in a way that would delay other things as well. And I just want it to be back to normal as soon as possible, but I know that might not be the case in some ways.
Totally, and I think, like, from what Janette and Fiona were discussing earlier on, that the local authorities, the education department, they have got a contingency plan in place. If things were to change quickly, they've got implementations in a plan. Sophie, how are you feeling about exams this year and future exams?
For me, I haven't got my major SQA. I think I've got my mocks this year for third year, so I do have a while to wait. However, delayed learning delays everything else, and it could delay my results. I don't know what's going to happen, if it will delay them, but I think I'm just going to work as hard as I can and try not to get too worked up about it.
That's all you can do, Sophie, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Have you guys got anything else you want to add on any of the questions or comments that have been discussed today?
Stay safe.
Just the fact that, stay safe. Yeah. Okay, guys, thank you very much for your input today and answering the questions.
Thank you.
No worries.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.